We aren't here simply to be visible. We are here to be victorious.
Since 2019, the National Trans Visibility March has been bringing together thousands of community members and allies in a historic march through our nation's capital, all in a united effort to make our voices heard. Now, as the march prepares for its 7th year, the fight for rights is entering a new era, pioneered by a decorated community leader.
I am so grateful to step into a position that is of deep importance to me. We can no longer be unseen, unheard, and uninvolved. The time is now to unite as a community and stand tall.
Join us June 3rd through the 8th as we celebrate our strides and create a future we can be proud of.
That's because I was muted. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Arli. Happy Monday, everybody. I am so excited to be here. I'm Dr. Elijah Nicholas. My pronouns are L, he, and him. And I am the National Director of Policy and Strategy for the National Trans Visibility March. And we are so excited about 2025. And today I have a very special guest here from ACLU, our partners over at ACLU. And Arli, I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Hi, Dr. Elijah, and hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you. My name's Arli, they or she pronouns, and I'm our Senior Policy Counsel over at the ACLU.
Well, you know what? We are so excited to be with you all today. We're so excited that ACLU has joined us in our march, in our fight for trans rights and trans liberation. I want to take a moment to direct everybody later on to go to our new page. It's NTVmarch.org, where you can see all the amazing things that we are doing. We will be talking about the march that's coming up in June. But today and for the next several weeks, we will be highlighting and elevating the voices of our partners and the amazing work that they're doing. And as I mentioned today, we're starting with ACLU, and let's just talk about it. You know, there's so much going on in the world, Arli. And one of the things that so many people are, eager to find out about is travel. Like, can I travel? What's the status of travel? If I have my passport, if I don't have my ID, like all of those things, that's what we want to talk about today. So right out the gate, like, what's happening, Arli?
What's happening? It's a great question. And you are right. There's so much going on. It is hard to keep up. But I think, we're going to get into the details and everything you need to know. I think one of the big picture messages is, look, it's always been complicated for trans folks to travel, right? We've always had so many barriers. We had sort of the infamous hashtag traveling while trans of all the wild stories that happen, right? When trans folks are traveling. And things have gotten worse. We'll talk about sort of what the attacks from the federal administration, from the Trump administration on our right to travel. But a lot of what is also happening is a lot of misinformation about what our rights are, a lot of fear about just the idea of traveling these days, because there's been such an increase in the rhetoric, in the hate, in the attacks on our community. And so part of, I think, what we want to do today is clarify, we have the right to travel. We have the right to live our lives and go the places we need to go. And so I think one thing we can really do today is make sure that everyone knows their rights, they're armed with the information they need. And while we know it's a really tough time for all, trans folks, intersex folks, non-binary folks, and our ability to just go about our daily lives, I think some of this information can really help clear up what our rights are. So we can go to stuff like World Field Pride, and we can go to
Yes.
Trans Visibility March and all of the important moments that we have coming up to continue to fight for our rights.
Absolutely. So as we get into the discussion, can you just tell me, first of all, who is Arli? Who is ACLU, or what is ACLU, and what are some of the amazing things that you all have been doing over there to help keep us safe?
Yeah. Well, Arli, so I've been doing work in the trans rights field for over 10 years now, and I've spent a lot of time on ID document policy. That's been a field of law that I worked in. I did go to law school, and then started. I worked at the National Center for Transgender Equality for a long time, and really worked to improve policies to make sure that people can access accurate IDs, that you can update gender markers on your IDs, that the legal name change process in each state is as easy as possible, even though it's never very easy, right? So I've done just a lot of work in this field. At the ACLU, I work, on our policy side, which is I'm part of our national advocacy department, and we, ACLU is involved in this fight in a lot of different ways. We look at trans rights as part of the broader picture of civil liberties, right? That every person in this country deserves the freedom to be ourselves, the freedom to go about our lives, the freedom to get jobs and not be discriminated against. And so trans rights are such an important part of that. So the ACLU as a whole is working on civil liberties for trans people and all people in a bunch of different ways. We have a big litigation department, and they're working in the courts to bring lawsuits to fight against, for example, the attacks of the Trump administration that are taking away some of our rights. And then I'm over here in the advocacy department, where we're working on the Hill in Congress. We're working with state legislatures. We're working to run campaigns to really push for trans rights, immigrant rights, rights of all people that are being trampled on right now. So that's, sort of part of the ACLU picture. And we have a lot of different avenues of how we're fighting for the civil rights and civil liberties of everyone who's here.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation. And can you just tell me, why is ACLU partnering with the National Trans Visibility March? Like, why is this a big deal for y'all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are so excited to be strong allied organization to the great work that's going on right now in the LGBTQ community and in trans rights specifically. And we know the importance of lifting up the work that you all are doing. The Trans Visibility March has been at the forefront, raising issues that are important for trans folks, making sure that are visible, making sure that our needs are being heard, and that people are seeing the real joy, the reality of trans lives. And ACLU knows that that's such an important part of fighting for our rights. We can't just fight in the courts. We can't just duke it out with judges and lawyers. It's really about community, making sure that we're lifting people up in community and making sure that we are telling our stories. And so when we see an organization like National Trans Visibility March doing that work, we're excited to get to work with you.
Thank you. So thank you so much. And we're so excited to work with the ACLU. We've done a hard pivot is what I like to call it, and transitioning more towards policy and legislation. We're still marching, and we're going to just build on that march and make sure that trans and non-binary people have the rights, have the healthcare rights, have the research that we need for us, by us, right? And so it's really important for us to partner with ACLU and other organizations like you as we move the needle, if you will, for trans and non-binary folks. Because as we've been saying, we are here and we are not going anywhere. And because of that, we need to show that through research and show the data and show the needs that exist. So we are so grateful again for our partnership. So Arli, let's get into it. People are scared to travel these
Yeah.
days. People are like, I can tell you, I personally canceled a overseas flight trip that I was supposed to do earlier in the year, and I was like, yeah, no, not right now. So let's talk about that. Is that the right thing? Is that what I should do? Should I move in fear? Like, let's talk about it.
Oh, fear is a tricky beast. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what's happened, and then a little, get into sort of that fear we're
Okay.
all feeling. But so, overall, since Trump came into office on January 25th, I think that was the date. Feels like so long ago.
I
On
know.
the right, doesn't it? Feels like a lifetime ago. But so Trump's first day in office, he signed an executive order, signed a bunch of terrible executive orders, but one of them attempted to basically redefine sex and what sex is. And this redefinition, one, was not based in science or fact or reality, but two, really attempted to disappear, essentially, to make trans people, intersex people, non-binary people non-existent under the law. Now, I will say Trump doesn't have the authority to do that. The president doesn't write the laws, right? The president doesn't, even interpret the law. Judges interpret the laws, right? We have branches of power and balances for that reason. Executive orders are meant to be the president's ability to tell federal agencies how to enact the laws, because that's under the president's scope, right? Those administrative federal agencies are under his branch of government. So he issues this terrible executive order. It says a lot of things about what it means to redefine sex. And one of those things was saying that across the federal government, they will only recognize as two sexes. And they're basically interpreting it to say that that means your sex assigned at birth, your biological sex at birth, I'll put in quotation marks, because the definition made no sense scientifically or reality-wise. And that's what he said. So the day after, the State Department said, okay, well, we're putting on pause all applications for passports that people are trying to change the designation on their passport, the sex designation, or if they're trying to get an X designation. So they put them all on pause, and then they came out with this new, again, wild, nonsensical policy, not based in science or reality or any kind of studies or any kind of information. And so now the State Department's policy says that when you're renewing your passport or getting a passport for a first time, that it must display the sex on your, original birth certificate. That's what it says. Now, in reality, that's first of all, just a complicated thing to require. Second of all, it's incredibly discriminatory. There's no reason for it. There's no valid government reason why that sex on our original birth certificate should be on passports, right? We all know passports and IDs are supposed to identify who we are, right? Not not some medical fact about us from a long time ago. So we are fighting this in court. So the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the passport policy and against the Trump administration for this discriminatory policy, telling them, one, they didn't follow any of the rules or procedures that they're supposed to follow when they changed the law, and two, that it's discriminatory and there's no valid government reason for targeting this small group of the population and making us display a sex designation that doesn't correspond with who we are, right? So that's the lawsuit. It is still, moving through the courts right now. As of right now, if you have a passport that is already issued and still valid, no matter what gender marker it has, M, F, or X, no matter whether it matches your sex at birth or not, it's still valid. So folks should know that for travel. And, as I just said, unfortunately, if you need to renew your passport, if you lose your passport, if you're getting a passport for a first time, the policy is that it is going to need to reflect that sex at birth. So that's sort of the state of passport policy right now.
Okay. So what about traveling? Like, can you talk a little bit about traveling if you already have a passport?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll highlight kind of two important things about travel. One is if you're traveling within the United States, you can use your state ID for travel as long as you've gotten your real ID compliant state ID. And that's an important thing that I do want to emphasize for folks. Take a look at your state ID, whether it's a driver's license or just a state ID. If it has a star in the upper right-hand corner, then it's a real ID approved state ID. If it doesn't have a star in that right-hand corner, I would recommend you go update your ID. Starting May 7th, you will need a real ID compliant state ID to use it in airports and for travel. And that's important to be able to just get around the US. So a lot of states, you can get a state ID that does match your gender designation. I would say the majority of states, you have to look up your individual state policy. But that's really important to remember. So if you're able to get that state ID that has your proper gender marker, you can use that when you're buying liquor. You can use it when you're going through airport security. You can use it when you're entering a federal building. And that way you don't have to show a passport if it has the wrong designation. So that's one important thing to remember. So for international travel, that's when that passport will come into play. And if you've got your if you'd already gotten a passport and it has your proper gender marker, you're in good shape. You don't have to renew it until it expires. If you got caught up in this mess since the change in administration, and you have to get a passport that does not match your gender, that has your sex at birth displayed on it. I'm so sorry. It's such an awful thing. I know. And for many people, it's a very emotional experience, right? We know that. And then like you're highlighting, people are just worried about what will happen. I think, important things to remember. You still have the right to travel. You still have the right to travel on that passport internationally. At this point, we're really looking at trying to make sure that you are safe, that officials in the airport don't question who you are. So one of the things I typically recommend to folks is that you bring other ID and source documents because, a couple of things. One, make sure that the picture on your passport matches you and how you look. That's really important. So even if the gender marker doesn't match, make sure that picture is up to date, matches how you look, because that's a really important piece of that officer looking at it and making sure, oh, that's you, right? Second is I do recommend that you bring other source documents. So if you can just have a folder with copies of your birth certificate, if you've got a legal name change, keep that legal name change on you. If you have another source of identification, just in case you get a jerk officer who starts to ask you a bunch of questions. Why doesn't your gender marker match? What's going on? Right. You say, you know what? That's the US policy, but here's some other documents. This is exactly who I am. Stay calm, answer their questions, and that should resolve things. For folks who have a passport that does match who they are, if they get questions, especially folks with an X designation, there's a website. The State Department did put up instructions on their website about the current policy. And so if you do get questions about that, saying, why do you have an X designation on your passport? I thought that was not valid. You can direct your officers to that website and say, actually, my passport is currently valid. It's still valid until it expires. So that's my plan. I'm going out of the country in April, later this month. And I've got an X designation on my passport. And, if I get any questions, I will have that website ready to show the officers.
Thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned that because a couple of things come up for me. One, obviously safety is always our main concern, right? And so there are some people who, like yourself, are scheduled to go out of the country or need to go out of country, may need to renew, like they may not be able to avoid it, right? Do you have a couple of things, any tips for anyone who has to go out of the country if by chance they might get stopped, and then for whatever reason, like if they have an X gender marker, and then secondly, we're having this discussion because World Pride is coming up, right? And we want to make sure that all of our siblings are able to get to the U.S. and get in the country. Do you have any advice for those or not advice, but any information for folks who are considering coming to Rural Pride, but they're concerned about the passports and IDs and what's happening in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, first, it's an understandable concern, and a few countries have issued travel advisories for LGBTQ folks traveling to the United States, because we have a hostile administration, and there's just we can't hide that fact, so we want everyone to make their decisions and stay safe. That being said, so for folks traveling here, we do still hope that our siblings from other countries will come join us. So there's a couple of policy changes that affect people coming in from other countries. There are new visa rules that they parallel these passport rules. So the passport rules affect those of us who are citizens who have passports here in the US. The visa rules affect people traveling to the US from countries that require visas. There's a bunch of countries that are visa waiver countries. They don't need a visa. So if someone's traveling from Europe, for example, the majority of European countries have a visa waiver, and they can come in as visitors for 90 days without a visa. So they can travel with their European passport, same. There's no changes for them. Again, the Border Patrol can ask any questions they want to ask, but there's no policy changes that affect these folks from visa waiver countries. If you do need to apply for a visa to come to the United States, then it does have to correspond with your sex at birth, just like that passport policy. So that's really, that's a big change, and could, be a barrier for some folks just to have to display a visa that does not match your sex at birth. But again, you still do have the right to travel here. And a lot of the safety that we all need is just about making sure we're able to field the uncomfortable questions that come when we have IDs that don't match who we are, and have the information, the additional information, because usually when you don't have an ID that matches who you are, it means they ask you all sorts of weird stuff and people don't trust who you are. So a lot of what we need to be trained on for our own safety is making sure we have the additional documents, the additional information, and also the poise to be able to field some of these discriminatory, unnecessary, and horrible questions that officers may ask us because of this discrepancy between IDs and who we are. Yeah.
Yes, and this is why I'm so grateful for the work that you all are doing, because all of this is discrimination, right? And we have to stand together to show that it's discrimination, and talk to our legislators so that we make sure that we have policies that protect us, right? That is why we're here. And I want to pause and give a shout out to our National Transvisibility March Policy and Safety Summit that will be taking place during World Pride. And the Policy and Safety Summit is on June 5th, that Thursday, and you must register to attend, which is why I want to pause and say that, because if you have not registered, we don't have you on the list, and we want to make sure that we get you registered, because we have a capacity on the amount of people that we can have in the room. So we want to hear your concerns. We want to hear what's happening. We want to learn from you, and then we want to build and grow and develop these policies together. So please, if you have not registered, we'll make sure that we get that in the comments for you so you can register today. Share the link with your friends, share the link nationally and internationally, and make sure you get registered for that. And that is your PSA for the moment.
I can't wait for the summit. It's going to be great.
I'm so excited about the summit because we're going to continue conversations like this. We have several partners like NMAC, Trans Can Work, the Transgender Law Center, Lavender Rights, and so many of us that are going to be in the room. To my knowledge, it's the first time that something like this has ever happened. And so it's the first time that we're all going to be in the room, and we're going to talk about all of these things that are going on. And then we're going to take that information and hear from trans and non-binary folks about what's happening in our lives real time, and then develop policy and strategy around that so that we can begin to have a national agenda on created for us and by us, right? And so, one more question on the passport and ID, please. What do you recommend? Because different states now obviously have different laws. And what can we talk a little bit about TSA and ID checks in the airport, and what people can maybe expect and also plan to make traveling a little smoother?
That's such a great question, Dr. Elijah, because I think there's a lot of confusion about coming through the airport about when officials, what they know about us, right, and what they're looking at. So a couple of tips. One is, when you buy your airplane ticket, you need to make sure that your legal name that you're putting onto your airplane ticket matches what the ID that you're walking through security. So it is really important to have your legal name match across your documents. For the most part, that's a pretty important thing. When you get a legal name change in your state in the courts, you got to go to Social Security, make sure it's updated there, get it updated on your license, get it updated in your passport, etc. You may want to bring that name change order with you places just in case, again, as we talked about, it could be a helpful document. So making sure they match when you put into the system. The only person that sees your ticket information and your ID information is that first TSA officer when you're walking through security. So when you get to that the podium and they ask for your ID and they're looking at their computer, they're looking at what you submitted to the airline and the ticket system, and they're making sure it matches the ID and your face. They're not instructed to look at gender markers at that point. They obviously can. It's on your ID right in front of them, but they're not instructed to. So that's really important to know. So that's sort of the moment when you're matching your ID to what's in the system. After you walk past that to those machines, they don't have any information about who you are, right? They don't have your name. They don't have your ticket. They don't have anything. At that point, they're responsible for making sure that each of us don't have bombs on us, that we don't have weapons, that we're not sort of dangerous. So if you have TSA PreCheck, you're going to go through a metal detector. And TSA PreCheck can be a really helpful thing for folks, especially for trans folks, because when you walk through a metal detector, they're not looking at like the shape of your body and the contours of your body. They're just looking at whether you've got metal on you. You also get to keep your shoes on, and you get to keep your laptop in your bag, which is pretty awesome. So think about TSA PreCheck, right? We know that. But if you don't have, so that's going through the metal detector. And then if a metal detector alarm goes off, then they use the wand to check more specifically for whether you have items that will go off. If you are going through the body scanner, so this is really important. About a year or two ago, they updated all of the body scanner machines so that they are no longer based on gender. So it used to be that the officer on the other side of the body scanner was taking a look at you. Literally, Dr. Elijah's walking through, they look at you and they push a pink or blue button, and that's how they're scanning your body. That is not true any longer. Wow. And we hope that it stays that way. But so now you just walk in and they're scanning everybody in the same way. Now, it's still possible that they will scan what they call anomalies, right? We all have a lot of different bodies, and I don't know why TSA is so up in our body business, but they are. Right. So when you walk through that, they're scanning your body. And then if the machine detects any anomaly, it's supposed to detect, like, if you have, again, a weapon concealed or something. But if they detect something they find funny, then you may have to go through additional screening. You still have the right to ask for an officer of your gender. They should comply with that. You have the right to ask for a private room. You may want to, take someone with you, do what feels comfortable for you. But a lot of times in those situations, you are obligated to go through additional screening in order to be able to get to your destination. So those are some of the things to kind of keep in mind. So nothing gender-wise has changed about the screening process. Keep in mind, a lot of those individuals are not well trained on sort of how to talk to trans folks, how to address people in respectful ways. So we see a lot of discrimination, harassment, unnecessary names and comments and sirs and ma'ams and just all sorts of uncomfortable things at the security checkpoint. But really do keep in mind your rights. Check out that TSA PreCheck if you think it could be helpful for you. make sure you take your belt off, stuff like that. The less likely you are to go off and set off the screening, the less likely you have to get touched and patted down. But I know it's a source of tension for a lot of us as we go through security.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you for that information, Arlie. It is a huge source of tension. I can tell you that I have trans and non-binary friends who they loathe traveling, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I gotta go through TSA, I gotta show my ID, I gotta do all of these things that the average, if you will, if there is such a thing, traveler doesn't even have to think about, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I pack my bag, I'm thinking about, am I going to check this bag or am I going to do this bag as a carry-on for various reasons, right?
Mhm.
And then when I go through, I'm so glad to hear they don't have the pink and blue buttons anymore at TSA, because that was always for me as a trans man. I would in early in my transition, I got stopped a lot, and it was just it's traveling can be just a stressful thing. So adding for trans and non-binary people specifically, and so adding all of these IDs and passports, right? We talk about barriers. It creates another barrier, right? And one of the other things that you mentioned that I wanted to lift up is, when we talk about, traveling is a luxury for many of us, right? Many of us don't get to travel. And so when we think about and talk about things like TSA pre-check, there's a cost to TSA pre-check, right? And so I'm just wondering how in the future how we can work with reducing that barrier and maybe helping people get TSA pre-check so that they can have a smoother transition. Because I'm blessed to have TSA pre-check now, and it has been a game changer for me. Not just on time, because I'm always late getting to my flight, but also it's just it reduces the stress. It's like just put my bag on the thing and go. And so how wonderful that would be to help all trans and non-binary people have a safe, secure, stress-free traveling experience by offering TSA pre-check. So, note to self, that's something that we'll have to figure out, how we can partner with someone on to help us help our trans and non-binary siblings. I know I said that was the last thing, but I want to talk about, and as we open up for questions, if you have questions, please get your questions ready. We're going to start answering questions here. If by chance something happens and a person gets detained, what is one or two things I should think about as a trans and non-binary person? I've gotten detained. I've got all my documents. Everything matches. What should I do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's probably a lot of different answers to this. One, stay calm, and make sure that we don't want anyone getting harmed. We don't want anyone. Like we don't want anything to get worse than it is. So we'll get you out of here. I think it's important to be prepared with who you would call in the situation that you get detained. So make sure you have someone's number. It's good to have someone's number memorized. We know that, right? Someone reliable who you can call on, who can say, "Oh, okay, get information on where you are," and get someone there immediately. So make sure that you've got someone's number and information. Don't talk more than you have to. You can ask for representation at any time. If if TSA has you, if CBP, which is the International Customs, has detained you, make sure that you are saying, "I would like a lawyer. I would like a lawyer." Now, I will, and I can't give legal advice over this live stream, and I'm not sort of well versed in immigration law. I do feel like. So the rules around searches at the border are they're allowed to search quite, they have sort of a broader authority to search our information, but that's especially true for non-citizens. So I do, it's important for permanent residents, for people coming in on visas, to be more aware of your rights, to have a person to call if you are detained, et cetera. Because as we know, again, this administration has not been friendly to anyone who is on various immigration statuses, and it's really important to have legal information and someone to call. But I think that's true for anyone. So make sure you've got a person to call. Also check out, there's been a lot of attention recently on what rights TSA and CBP, Customs and Borders Patrol, have to search your phone, right? Your electronics. My plan when I travel through security right now is to have my phone completely off and put away. And I will not be traveling abroad with my work computer, for example. I think, remember that information security and data security is really important as well, particularly if you're someone who posts a lot about, the administration, and you post a lot about other issues that the administration might be flagging right now. It's really important to stay safe there. Now, there's different information about when you're obligated to unlock your phone, show information. I think that changes from when you're a citizen and when you're not. ACLU has a good page up about your rights with data security and digital security when you're going through airports. So check that page out so that you're ready when you're traveling. And again, none of it's to scare folks, but just knowing our rights and being prepared and showing as little information as possible when we're going through these checkpoints is really important so that we can stay as safe as possible given the moment we're in.
Right. Thank you for that information, Arli. And, I want to just reemphasize that is why the National Trans Visibility March has pivoted and we're doing what we're doing, is because we want to make sure that people have information, that they know where to go when something happens, and then also that we're represented on a policy level as well as a legislative level, because all of these things that are happening now, unfortunately, we don't have many voices. We have some voices now in our legislation, but we don't have many voices in our legislators that are trans and non-binary voices. And so we're doing the work. We're going to be doing the research again for us, by us, so that we can make sure that we're meeting our needs. We're responsible, as responsible as we can be. We're responsible for ourselves. So thank you for that information. Arli, you mentioned immigration. Is there any information you'd like to share about immigration, specifically about trans and non-binary folks who may be impacted right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, so the same changes that we have seen to the passport policy, where they're now requiring us to get passports in their sex at birth, those changes also apply to Citizenship and Immigration Services, who are the folks who issue all of the immigration documents. So work permits, permanent resident cards, your citizenship naturalization certificate, any asylee documents, any documents you're getting related to immigration status, they have now issued a new policy that say they must be issued according to the sex at birth or sex on your birth certificate. So again, another horrible policy change and discriminatory policy change from this administration. So talk to your immigration attorney if you have to get a document updated, if you are applying for a certain status, what to put on your forms, etc. It's very important that you get some legal advice, particularly for anyone dealing with your immigration status.
Yes. And so immigration is another thing that we'll be talking about at our Policy and Safety Summit coming up June 5th. Make sure you get registered on NTV March, National Trans Visibility March. .org, so that we can make sure that you're in the room, and we will also want to hear from you. I saw in the comments, shout out to everybody that's watching. I saw someone ask how they can get more involved in the march. Please go to ntvmarch.org, and there's a submission form on there. We also will be putting out more slides on our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn pages. We'll be calling for volunteers soon, so if you want to help us out at the march, we would love absolutely to have you. We've got a lot of amazing things happening this year. I also wanted to lift up what you mentioned, Arli, about cyber and digital security. We're going to be having talks over the next couple of weeks as well about cybersecurity, physical security. We want you to stay safe stay safe 360 degrees all the way around. So thank you for mentioning that, Arlie. I want to pause now. And well, Arlie, do you have any questions for me?
Dr. Elijah, what are you kind of most excited for the summit and for World Pride? Can you tell us?
Oh gosh. I'm excited about everything. I'm excited about taking a chance to breathe once we actually get there. It's so much planning happening. I'm excited about the amazing team that we have. Shout out to Danny, who is in our background, making this stream yard, making us look good. Isn't Danny like making us look good? Like Danny has us all together. So I'm so excited. We have an amazing team of leaders, an amazing team of strategy directors, and I'm just so excited about working with all of our strategy directors and working with our partners like ACLU and the others who have committed to making sure that we move the march forward this year. And I'm excited about the voice that we have this year. I'm excited. I always try to look for a positive in everything, and as tumultuous as these things are right now, everything is crazy right now. I think the positive outcome is that there are voices coming forward, trans and non-binary voices that have come forward to continue to carry this thing on. And so I'm excited about elevating those voices. I'm excited about elevating the work of our partners, ACLU, Transgender Law Center, Lavender Rights, Black and Pink, SNAPCO. I'm just so excited about working with such an amazing team. I'm excited about the Labor of Love Awards that we'll be having this year for World Pride. And I'm excited about all the amazing things that World Pride is doing and has done to make this a safe space for trans and non-binary people. So I know that was a long answer to what I'm excited about, but I'm excited about, so many things. And I'm also excited. I want to just lift up our founder, Marissa Miller. I'm excited about, Marissa entrusting us with this vision, the board of strategy directors, entrusting us with her baby, with her vision. So shout out to you, Marissa. Thank you for that. And I will say I'm also excited about our Gen Zers that we have working with us on the team. Like, I'm just like I'm learning so much from it's funny that I'm saying young folks now when I used to think I was the young folk, but I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about our Gen Zers that are going to be helping us. Shout out to Tyler and the Christopher Street Project and Bella, and just I'm just so excited. I better not start saying names because I'll get in trouble. But I'm excited about everything.
Yeah. It's such an important moment. The work you all are doing is so important. And, I got a bit of hope this weekend I went to the Hands Off rally out in Morgantown, West Virginia. And there were thousands of people there. And I think it was really a moment where I saw, think a lot of people are understanding that the attacks on trans people are so connected to the broader attacks on our Medicaid funding, yes, our Medicare funding, our science funding, right? Our federal workers. And so when you saw all of those signs, and I was in, a relatively small town in West Virginia, and just so much recognition that the attacks on the trans community are absolutely intricately connected to all of the attacks we're seeing on our various communities, on our immigrant communities. And, so it was really, I think, heartening to see that. And I think the moment for having trans-led, visibility right now is so important to just help people kind of continue to understand that and see how we are connected to the broader, really like attack on our democracy. So yes. I think, the work you're doing and the Trans Visibility March are just so key right now, as we all have to really be stepping up and talking up and speaking out about attacks on our freedoms.
Absolutely. And you mentioned freedoms and democracy, and I definitely want to lift up our veterans. And I'm excited about the work that we're doing around making sure that specifically our trans veterans, trans and non-binary veterans, are protected and receive the benefits that we deserve. And so that's another thing that we'll be talking about this year at the Policy and Safety Summit. And then I'm also excited about our Empowerment Day, where we're going to talk about financial literacy. We're going to talk about emotional and mental and spiritual wellness. The good Reverend Carmarian is going to be having another empowerment service this year in our partnership with UCC. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about that so that people, because it's a space where people will be able to just breathe and just be and get replenished and get refilled and go out and have some fun. It's been a tough year. Like, it's been a tough year, and it's been a really tough 60 days. So I am excited about us finding pockets of joy, finding spaces at World Pride to party, to have a good time, to let our guards down, and just to really have a good time so we can get refueled to continue on in this fight and continue on in the march, if you will. It's a daily thing. And it is exactly what you said, Arlie. It is an attack on our democracy. Today it's trans and non-binary people. Tomorrow it will be another demographic. So that is why it is so important and so critical for us to work together, to work across the aisle, if you will. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. Our goal is to work with everybody and across industries, in and out of the rainbow community, if you will, because it's really an attack on democracy. And that's our goal this year, is a National Trans Visibility March, to bring even our allies and people who may not even understand the trans and non-binary experience, but what we have in common is what we all desire, and it's freedom, respect, democracy, and all the things that make, in my opinion, this nation the best nation. I say that as a veteran. I think it's the best nation in the world. And so we want to just make sure that we all have the opportunity to exercise our freedoms. So I'm going to ask Danny if there's any questions, and if not, we will begin to close up. Any questions for us, Danny? And I want to say, I believe it's Kimora. I don't want to mispronounce. Kimora, Kimora Elizabeth, I saw your post. Please email Danny at ntvmarch.org, and Danny will make sure that you get all the information you need. We definitely need volunteers and assistance with the march, and we'd be happy to have you.
Absolutely. And if folks have questions about, IDs and your rights while traveling, feel free to get in touch on Facebook or Instagram, or find me on LinkedIn, and we'll figure it out. We'll get you to the right place. We want to make sure everyone has the information they need to feel safe and secure as possible while traveling. And we want to be able to see you at the summit and at Pride and at anything else that you want to be traveling for, so that we can all live our lives and have our joys. So
thank you so much for your time today, Arli. Do you want to give a website for ACLU where people can find you?
Yeah, we're at ACLU.org. There's more information on all of our lawsuits against the Trump administration right now, so you can look those up. We have quite a bit of Know Your Rights. We have a lot of protest Know Your Rights. Like I said, there's some information about traveling and digital safety, so definitely check that out. My bio is up there. Feel free to get in touch with me. And just, such a pleasure to be in community with you, Dr. Elijah, and with all the work of the National Trans Visibility March. We're so excited.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. And as we close, is there anything you want to share that ACLU is working on or has in the works right now?
Oh, so much. I mean, there's a new thing every day. But keep an eye out as some of this litigation moves forward. And there's a lot of organizations doing important litigation on behalf of trans folks right now against the Trump administration. So litigation fighting for the rights of our active duty service members, and litigation to defend folks who are incarcerated and making sure that they have appropriate housing and access to medical services. And litigation about passports. And there's just a lot happening right now. People are fighting for all of our rights. And each of the ways that we fight is important. So whether we're showing up in the streets, or whether we are sharing information amongst each other, or whether we are in the courts, or whether we are just talking to our family members and trying to help people understand our humanity, right? All of it's important. All of it's necessary right now. So just really excited to kind of be in community with all of you.
Yes, and I want to, if it's okay, I'd love to lift up the Freedom to Be event that's happening. Is it May 17th?
Yes, that's such a great reminder. It's going to be unbelievable. We have a great Freedom to Be event where trans and non-binary and LGBTQ folks across the country have made these quilt squares. Mm-hmm. They're gorgeous, beautiful works of art. And they'll all be in display in Washington, D.C. on May 17th. And so you can sign up, I think, on our ACLU website. You should definitely be there for it. It will be gorgeous.
Yes, we are going to do our best to get there on May 17th. So Arli and ACLU, thank y'all so much for joining the National Trans Visibility March weekly virtual activations. We will be right back here next Monday at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And I believe next week we're going to talk about cybersecurity and a little bit about technology. So you don't want to miss it. Again, please go follow ACLU on all social media platforms. Follow the March, ntvmarch.org. Make sure you get registered for World Pride. And also, while you're at World Pride, make sure you get registered and take a look at all the amazing things that World Pride is doing this year. We want to see you June 3rd through the 8th this year in Washington, D.C. Have an amazing day, y'all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elijah. Thanks for bringing us all together.
You're awesome. Welcome.
Take care.
You ready to march?
We are so excited to be here and to be in year 5. And I want to tell you that I thank you for being here. I love you guys. We will march. When I say trans, you say power. Trans.
I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary.